Hi, I'm Dr. Patrick Jones from the Homegrown Herbalist School of Botanical Medicine, and I want to introduce you to somebody that's a good friend of mine, and it's probably an herb that I get more questions about, especially lately, than any other, and that's elder. So this is elder. The genus is Sambucus. This particular elder is Sambucus nigra. Okay, nigra means black, right? So this is a dark elder. So the leaves on this one are darker green, and sometimes even almost a maroon kind of a color, as depending on which one you get. But there's also a lot of varieties of elder that are ornamental, that have been hybridized, and they have little frilly leaves and little, more fine fern-like different kind of leaf structures. I wouldn't recommend those, and the reason is because the leaf is an important source of medicine. And if you're going to plant an elder, you might as well plant one that gets good-sized regular leaves instead of one that gets little fringy frilly leaves, right? Makes sense? All right, so this is Sambucus nigra. This is another elder we have growing on the property. This is just your typical mountain elder. And you can see the leaves are green on this one versus the darker green of the Sambucus nigra. And this is the flower. So it's middle of September right now, end of September actually. And why do we have elderberry flowers? Well, we have elderberry flowers because plants do everything based on temperature and photoperiod, right? And so we're getting cooler days and shorter days. And so this guy thinks, oh, it must be spring, I better make some flowers, right? So you'll always get a flower or two. They don't do it like they mean it because most of the plants are smarter, but this guy didn't get it. And so he thought it was maybe April, seems like April out there. Anyway, I wanted to show you the flower because the flower is also the medicine. And while we're here, we can also look at the berry, right? Because the berry is the medicine as well, okay? So let's talk about that. When would we use one versus the other? There's a lot of people will email me and say, I read on the internet that the berry's toxic, or I read on the internet that the leaves are toxic and they'll kill you, And let me just tell you the way it really is. Okay, I've been using elder, leaf, berry, and flower for decades, all right, and never had a single issue. So let me tell you sort of why that's being said and what's being said and what it's all about. So elderberries and elder plants, like a lot of plants, have some cyanide in them, okay? And cyanide is not medicinal. I don't know if you knew that. Write that down. That's important. Cyanide's pretty bad for you, but a lot of plants have cyanide. Cherries, plums, apricots, all the stone fruits have cyanide in them. Wild cherry bark, which is choke cherry, which is a remedy we take for coughs, right? That has cyanide in it, okay? So it's not uncommon for plants to have a little of that. The trick is to know where it is and when it is, right? So you don't get into trouble. Now, with the elderberries, all three elements are medicinal. The flower is medicinal, the berries medicinal, and the leaves are medicinal, okay? You'll also read occasionally, in fact, there was an old sort of foundational herbal medicine book called Back to Eden back in the 60s, written by a gentleman named Klaus, who said that recommended the bark of the root and the root itself as medicine. That actually is a bad idea, okay? That's high enough cyanide levels that it could actually make you sick, all right? So I would strongly say don't use the root or the root bark, all right? There's also one variety of elder called red elder, Sambucus racemosa, and those elders look very like these in every respect, except that the berries are bright red, okay? And those berries have enough toxicity that they might give you a bellyache, okay? They're not going to knock you over dead, but you'll wish that you'd listened to Doc Jones and not taken those, okay? So don't use the red elderberry. You can use the leaf from that plant, or you can use the flower from that plant and be just fine, but don't use the red berries, okay? So avoid the red berries, and they don't grow everywhere. I've not seen them in the wild in our area. Ours are all the blue or purple berries. So we haven't had to worry about that. But flower, berry, and leaf, in that order, is the order of strength. Okay, so the flower is the most mild, and then the berry, and then the leaf. So who would I use for what, right? Well, I would use the flower for little tiny people, toddlers and smaller. I would only use the flower because anything else might give them a bellyache. The berry, if you're cooking the berry and making a syrup out of it, you can probably give that to little babies, toddlers too, and that's okay. But the berry really is okay for anybody. And the leaf is the strongest of the three, and I only use the leaf on adults. Okay, that's my preferred use of elder, is the leaf. I use a lot more leaf than I use of anything else because it's stronger and it works better. So what does it do? Well, elder has a couple of properties that are really important. One is it's pretty good at breaking fevers. Okay, so it's a diaphoretic. That's the funky herbalist word for a plant that stimulates a sweat and a actual increase briefly of heat to break the fever. Okay, so if you take a cup of elderberry tea, especially if you combine it with some peppermint or maybe with some yarrow, which is another good diaphoretic, take a hot cup of elderberry tea or elder leaf tea, wrap up in a blanket, and you'll break into a sweat and break that fever. Okay, so it's very effective for that, and I think it's better for that than a lot of the fever-reducing medications and even some of their fever-reducing plants, right? Because there's other plants that you can take that inhibit the fever, like plants like spirea, which is where aspirin came from, or willow bark or aspen bark or, birch bark. A lot of those plants that have aspirin salicylic acid in them will break a fever by inhibiting the fever, right? Well, that's kind of like fighting for the other team, right? Because the fever's doing stuff. And so a better thing, in my view, to do is to accentuate and enhance and improve and speed up that fever so that it gets over with more quickly. That's what elder does, okay? Now, elder also has some remarkable antiviral properties. It inhibits viral attachment, and viral replication of several of the respiratory viruses, okay, including influenza viruses and including the coronaviruses. Okay, there's good research on this. This isn't something we're making up or reading in an old dusty-haired book written by somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about. They've done the research, and the chemicals in the elder are inhibitory to those viruses, and so they stop the virus from attaching to the cell in the first place. And then once the virus has infected the cell and put its RNA or DNA into the cell structure so that cell will make more viruses, it inhibits that too. So it can be a very powerful aid in cases of respiratory illness. A lot of the viruses that cause colds and flus are in the categories that this plant inhibits. Okay. Now, some people ask if they should use the elder for coronaviruses. Well, that's a great question. And some people say, don't do it. Don't do that. That's bad. And some people say it's the best thing in the world. And well, what's the truth? What's the answer? Well, the answer is that elder works the way elder works. And the way elder works, one of the ways it works, is by stimulating cytokines. All right. Cytokines are chemicals that your immune system produces that attract other immune cells, white blood cells, to come fight the bugs. Okay. So you got these little neutrophils and lymphocytes cruising around your body, checking everything and making sure it's you and not somebody else. And when they find a bacterium or they find a virus, a cell infected with a virus, they release cytokines. They stimulate cytokine release so that other guys will come fight those foreign invaders. Okay, that's a good thing. A lot of our herbs work that way. Echinacea works that way. Elder works that way. A lot of the immune stimulating herbs that we depend on to kill bugs stimulate cytokines, and that's usually a good thing. Now, occasionally, you can have too much of a good thing, and that's what they call a cytokine storm. And it's not common, but some of the influenza viruses and some of the coronaviruses will actually cause an excess production of cytokines. And so you can actually get more harm than good from that cytokine because now you got too much of a response. Just as an example, during the Spanish flu, the people that were dying of the Spanish flu back in 1918 were young, healthy adults, which isn't normal. Usually the people that die of the flu are little kids and little old ladies, right? The old people and young people whose immune systems are weaker. That's usually who the flu kills. But in the Spanish flu outbreak, that particular strain of influenza was causing these cytokine storms, and the young people were dying because they were actually drowning in their own immune response. Okay, so it was too much of a good thing. And there's herbs you can take for that as well. You know, there's grape leaf is a great one, but there's others. Go to homegrownherbalist.net. There's a formula called cytokine balance. I'll read the herbs on that and have a look at that formula. That's what we use for cytokine modulation, okay? Coronavirus, this COVID-19 coronavirus that we're all having such fun with right now, can sometimes cause cytokine storms. Well, should you take elder for that or shouldn't you? Well, the answer to that is yes and no, okay? So what I would recommend, and the best way to use this plant for that kind of a scenario, is when you're in the early stages and you first feel it coming on, this plant is very good at inhibiting that virus, at slowing it down, at shutting it down, right? But once you get to the stage where you're getting a lot of fluid in the lungs and stuff, you need to quit, all right? Then do something else, all right? But so early on, this is the best thing in the world. If you start getting some, deep lung fluid stuff, you need to quit the elders and get on something that inhibits cytokines like grape leaf, all right? And that's grape leaf, like from grapes that you make wine of, like grapes, not Oregon grape, which is another herb completely, but grapes, Vitis, right, the genus, like grapes you make raisins out of. So anyway, that's the story with elder. Is all three of the medicinal parts are safe. The flower, the berry, and the leaf are all great. Don't use the red berry from Sambucus racemosa. Do not use the roots or the root bark. But flower, berry, and leaf are okay, as long as those berries are blue or purple. And you can see here, let's find one. These are almost ripe. Some of them are ripe. Okay, so here's some berries. And most of the berries on this cluster are ripe. See the dark purple ones? Those guys are ready to go, okay? Some of these lighter pink guys aren't quite ready. And I'd wait till they're uniformly pretty dark. And then the way I harvest them is just like that. I take the whole cluster of berries off. I throw it on a rack and let it dry. And then once it's dry, we powder it and use it in our formulas. You can make a tea out of it. You can make a tincture out of it. You can put it in capsules, whatever you want to do. And like I say, the cyanide levels in these are not high enough to be an issue. One thing you can do if you're worried about getting a bellyache is you can cook them, and that'll decrease that a little bit. I've just never had any issues. I think I had one student. I've got like 2,000 students in the herb school right now. And I think I had one person one time say that if they took too much leaf, it would give them a tummy ache. That's the only evidence or negativity I've ever heard about anything of that kind of an issue. But again, I don't use it in little kids. So that's how you don't get that problem, right? So anyway, elder's also a little bit unique in that heat doesn't seem to bother it. So you can make like an elderberry syrup or something and steep it for a long time, a lot longer than I would steep most herbs, because a lot of herbs are very, very sensitive to heat, and you'll completely destroy the medicine if you boil them and get them hot long term like that. The elder doesn't care. The chemicals in elder are very heat resistant. So you can make syrups and things, and that's a fun way, or jellies, and they're still medicinal. And so that's a fun way to get, elderberries into your kids, is to make a nice elderberry syrup or something. And we'll have a little of that going on here too in a minute. Anyway, Sambucus species, great for respiratory stuff, great for breaking fevers, just a great medicine, great for jelly on your toast. So that's elderberry. I'm Dr. Patrick Jones, and thanks for listening. So I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this. I hope you'll share this and get the word out. There's a lot of misinformation about elder out there, and I would get a lot fewer emails if you would do that. So, click the like button, click the share button, send this to your buddies on Facebook and your mother-in-law and your grandkids and whoever, so that they can get the scoop, and they can know how to use this plant and what to do, and not be worried about things they hear and read, because this really is the scoop on elder. This is the correct information. So I hope you've enjoyed it, I'm Dr. Patrick Jones. If you'd like to learn even more about herbs, have a look at our website, homegrownherbalist.net, and maybe take a look at the school, the Homegrown Herbalist School of Botanical Medicine. We'd love you to join you in that herbal journey. So thanks very much for listening.